So we had seen in our previous lecture the essential elements of a contract, and we had seen the definition of a contract, and we had seen the 10 essential elements of a contract, that is a free consent, lawful object, lawful consideration, writing and registration, then certainty, um, and so a lawful offer and lawful acceptance of the offer. So today we will see the one topic related to the Indian Contract Act, that is the discharge of a contract. So let's have a look on PPT. Actually, in contract, when there is a discharge, means when the contractual relationship come to an end, that is called a discharge of contract. Means somewhat that contract is successfully completed, or the contractual relationship comes to an end, that is a discharge of a contract. So we had their performance of a contract. Actually, we can have two types of performance, that is the actual performance and attempted performance. In actual performance, when each party to contract fulfill the obligation arising out of the contract within the time, within the manner specified in the contract, or in the manner prescribed in the contract, it amounts to the actual performance. It means that in actual performance, when both the parties to the contract fulfill their promises within time given, or within the manner prescribed in the contract, means that contract comes to an end, or it can be said to be discharged. And you can easily imagine if one of the parties to the contract did not fulfill their obligation, what will happen? Then in that case, such party gets the right to take any action against that party who is guilty in breaking the contract. So that is about the actual performance of a contract. In actual performance, always keep in mind both the parties under the contract perform their legal obligation arising out of contract, and they in that manner described, or in a time specified, in specified time, in specified manner, both the party perform their obligations. That is called actual performance. And if one of the party did not perform his obligation, the other party can take action against other party who is guilty for the breach of a contract. The another thing is that we attempted performance. This is, we can say, this performance is attempted, so it is a tender. Actually, in attempted performance, when the promisor offers to perform his obligation under the contract, but he is unable to do so because the promisee does not accept the performance. When the promisor offering something, but promisee is not able to perform that promise, not able to perform his promise, or does not accept the performance, it is called a attempted performance or a tender. So tender is not actual performance. Actually, tender is not actual performance, it is attempted performance. Why it is attempted performance? Because one party offers to perform certain promise to other parties, or in general, but other party is unable to perform that promise. So that is we can say that performance is attempted by only one party, and the other party is unable to perform his promise or something like that. So that is a attempted performance or a tender. So tender is not actual performance, it is offer to perform, it is a offer to perform. the valid tender of a performance is actual is equivalent to performance. So we have certain kind of essentials of valid tender. So tender is always by one party. It is offered to perform, and the public is that tender is open to all. So the other party will perform or not perform is depend on that. Depend on their wish. So that is a tender. So there are some essential conditions. In a tender, essential condition of a valid tender. So, in a tender, it must be unconditional. When somebody is offering to perform something, it must be unconditional. A conditional tender is no tender at all. When A, who is a debitor of a company B, offers to pay if shares are allotted to him. So that is a at per, it is no tender at all. Okay, because it is a condition. Because a conditional tender is no tender at all. Okay, and then the tender must be made at a proper time and proper place. It must be made at a proper time and proper place. A is a person. A tender before or after due date or at a place other than agreed upon is not a valid tender. A tender before the date or after the date, as well as at any place where both the party are not agreed upon that place, that is not a valid tender. For example, A is a tenant of a B and he offers him rent at a marriage party. At a marriage party, he offers him rent. B is not bound to accept because tender is not made at a proper place. So it must be made at a proper time, not before or after due date, or at a proper place. Okay. Then next essential condition for a valid tender is that it must be of the whole obligation contracted for, not only of the part. It is given for whole obligation, not the small part of that. This deciding of his own to pay in installment and offering the first installment was held as an invalid tender. Why? Because that amount is in installments. Okay, the amount is not whole, so even it is not agreed, it was not of the whole amount, the tender is not valid tender. Then we can say it must be whole obligation, not a part of it. If there is a 10,000 of obligation arising out of a tender, and if the person is giving just 2,000 and I'm saying that he will give in installment, that will not be the valid tender. Then at a reasonable opportunity, tender relates to, when the tender is relates to the delivery of goods. Okay, it must give the reasonable opportunity to the to whom, to the promisee for the inspection of goods. Why there is a need of inspection of goods? Because there is a need of inspection that the goods standards are of a contract description. The description of a goods given in the contract should be similar to the goods which is received by the promisee. So there is a, and for that, the through the tender, there is reasonable opportunity giving to the promisee for a inspection of a good. Okay. And next is, it must be made by a person who is in a position and is willing to perform the promise. A tender by the who is in a position and is willing to perform means promise, it is related like capacity to contract. A tender by a minor, a tender by idiot, is not a valid tender, or by a lunatic person it is not a valid tender. Okay, and it must be made to the proper person. It must be made to the proper person. The promise of his duly authorized agent, the tender made to stranger is invalid. The stranger person is tender is invalid. Tender made to stranger is invalid. Then there are other 2 points that when there are several joint promising, an offer to any one of them is a valid tender. Even though it is so, if there are the 5 promisee and we are offering to pay to one promisee, it is valid tender, but the payment must be made to all joint promisee, means 5 out of 5. We have to pay all joint promisee, not any one of them, for what? For a valid discharge of a contract. So in case of a tender of a money, exact amount should be tendered in the legal tender money. Means tendering a smaller or tendering a large amount is an invalid tender. Tendering 100 currency note to the conductor of a bus for a 2 rupees ticket is not a valid tender. Similarly, a tender by check is also invalid tender, as it is not a legal tender. Okay, so if the creditor accept that check, he cannot afterward raise the objections. We can have this tender. We can see this example of a tender in a newspaper. So this is a tender notice, that is a attempted performance. The name of the work is given, and that is an invitation for tender. Means what is that? Invitation for tenders means offer to perform, means attempted performance. So that is a tender. The money, the time limit, date is given here. The name of a work is given here. So it is a kind of a attempted performance. If you see such kind of a tender advertisement in the newspaper many times, this is called a attempted performance of a tender. So the effect of refusal to accept a properly made offer and performance is that the contract is deemed to have been performed by the contract is deemed to have been performed by the promisor, and the promisee can accept that offer or not accept that offer. It depends. So this is the actual attempted performance of a contract, we can say, or attempted performance or a tender. Then we have a discharge of a contract. So there are when we these are the discharge of a contract. We had seen the actual performance, the mode of a discharge of a contract, and attempted performance. So there are the certain types of discharge of a contract. So today we will see the discharge of a contract by mutual consent or agreement. So there are the types. We can say the notation, rescission. Then we can have alteration and rescission and waiver and remission. So these are the discharge of a contract by mutual consent. So in notation, we can see here that a new contract is substituted for the existing contract. The new contract is substituted. Notation occurs when new contract is substituted for existing contract, either between the same parties, or we can say between the different parties also. The consideration mutually being the discharge of a discharge of between the same parties or between the different parties, and the consideration mutually being in discharge of a old contract, that is old contract. There is a consideration that whatever the novation occurs, it is not necessary to have a new parties. It may be between the same parties, it may be between the different parties, and the consideration is mutually being the discharge of a old contract. So if the parties are not changed, the nature of the obligation must be altered substantially in the new substituted contract. It is old contract come to an end, and new contract is substituted instead of old contract, and it is maybe between different parties, or it may be between the same parties. And if it is between the same parties, only the nature of obligation altered substantially in a new contract. So mere variation of some of terms of a contract while the parties remain the same is not a novation, but it is a alteration. If the parties are same and only there are the certain terms of a contract need to change, that is called a alteration, that is not novation. But substitution of a new contract instead of old contract, that is a novation, even though it is between the same parties or it is between the different parties. Here we have an example. You can see in this slide that A inducted to C, but by mutual agreement, B's debts to C and B's loan to A are cancelled. Okay, why? Because A is indebted to B, we can consider her 1000 rupees, and B need to give C 1000 rupees. So A gave directly to C 1000 rupees. Okay, so B's debenture, B's loan to C or B's loan to A are cancelled, and C accept A as his debitor. So there is a novation involving the change of parties by a mutual agreement. Then we have another example. There is one more thing here I wish to mention, that new contract must be valid and must be enforceable between the new parties. Okay, if it suffers from any legal flaw, want of a proper stamp or registration, on account of which it becomes unenforceable, so then original contract revives. So this is very important. Even though there is a novation, new contract is substituted instead of old contract, still it should be valid and enforceable contract. Then alteration of a contract. Here we have alteration. Alteration of a contract means change in one or more material terms of a contract. Material terms, it is a change about the material terms. If material alteration in a written contract is done by mutual contract, in its alter form takes place. Okay, material condition. What is material alteration? It is one which alters the legal effect of the contract. What is it that material alteration? That change in amount of money, then change in amount of money to be paid, on change in a rate of interest to be paid. Then immaterial alteration, that is correcting clerical error, figures, spelling, names, has no effect on the validity of contract and does not amount to alteration. Okay, that clerical error and all this, it will not affect. But the change in amount of money, change in rate of interest, these are the most important thing. for alteration. It is also relevant to state that material alteration made in written contract by one party without the consent of other will make the whole contract void. If there is a and B party and they made a contract, they made some alteration without A made some alteration in a contract without knowing B, that is completely void contract and no person can maintain an action upon it. So it is most important thing that a mutually agreed alteration is there. It comes under the discharge of a contract if there is an alteration in a contract by the only one party. So difference between novation and alteration, if we see, it may be noted that in case of novation, there may be changes in a party. But in case of alteration, parties remain the same. Only the material condition, material things or certain things which both the parties wish to change about the rate of interest, about we can say the amount of money to be paid, unlike such kind of some alteration, that alteration come under the alteration. Okay. Then next is rescission. When when a contract may be discharged, okay, contract may be discharged before the date of performance if both the parties are agree. If both the parties are agree to the for a contract may be discharged, it will no longer binding. It happens in the business world. We can say that a contract may be discharged before the date of performance if both the parties are agree. Such an agreement amount to rescission or a cancellation of a contract. So the consideration for mutual promises being somewhere abandoned by respective parties of their rights under the contract. A simple example is there. A promise is to deliver certain goods to be on a certain date. But before the date, if you see here PPT, that promises to deliver certain goods to be on certain date. Before the date of performance, A and B mutually agree that the contract will not be performed, because if we can say here, and that is A promises to deliver certain goods. Here we will take 100 bags of wheat to B on a certain date. Okay, but before that date, A and B mutually feel that it is not possible to deliver 100 bags of wheat to B. And B is also agree कि yeah, it is not possible to perform this promise. So A and B mutually agree the contract will not be performed. Of course, we had seen that if the consent to treat non-performance or a part performance of a contract as equivalent to the full performance of a contract or a discharge of a contract, it is perfectly all right. It is like that a contract to marry B, it is a valid contract, but a contract with B not to marry C is a void agreement, because agreement in restraint of marriage is a void agreement. So next is remission. Remission. Remission, we can consider the reduction of a lesser amount. Remission may be defined as the acceptance of a lesser sum what was contracted for or lesser fulfillment of the promise made. Okay, so here we can have example. If the promisee agrees to accept rupees 2,000 in the full satisfaction of a claim of 5,000, means the promiser gave 5,000. If A person gave 5,000 to B person who is a promisee, but While returning that, promisee agrees to accept rupees 2,000 in full satisfaction of a claim of a 5,000. That is, we can say here lesser sum, less amount. What was contracted for fulfillment of a promise, means the amount which is promised in a contract, even though it is high, but even though it is more, but party may accept the lesser sum what was contracted. So the promisee agrees to accept 2,000. Promisee agree to give me 2,000 instead of 5,000. The promise is enforceable, and the promisee, then after that, promisee cannot bring suit in future for the recovery of a 5,000. After remission, we have waiver. That is called giving up a right, giving up of right which party is entitled to under a contract, where the party to contract is released from its obligation. A simple example of this is that when where A promises to tailor to shirt for a B, if he will sing a song in his birthday, but B birthday party, and accordingly B sing the song, but afterward B forbids A to tailor the shirt to which A is consented, the contract is terminated by waiver. Waiver means waiving up certain rights, waiving up, waiving up right, giving up certain thing. We are giving up when A and B person, A promises B person, if you sing the song in my birthday party, I will give you shirt. Okay, B sing the song, but afterward B said to me, "Oh, rehne do, but I don't want shirt." So that is what he is waiving his right. Okay, he is giving up his right, even though under a waiver, he is means he can we are legally bound to give him shirt, but still by himself he is waiving his right. So that is about the waiver. So this is about the discharge of a contract by mutual agreement. Thank you very much.